Welcome to the debate. Today is October 10th, 2025, and there's a lot of attention split, really, between Washington and Oslo. Here in D.C., everyone's still processing that, well, let's call it fiery Oval Office exchange from yesterday, and over in Oslo, they're just hours away from announcing the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize winner. The trigger for that exchange, of course, was President Trump drawing a very explicit line, comparing his own diplomatic efforts, boasting he's stopped 8 wars now, to Barack Obama's 2009 Nobel, which Trump dismissed, didn't he, as being given for, quote, doing nothing. This whole situation, it really forces us to grapple with a fundamental question, one that experts, argue about constantly. When we're evaluating success in global peacemaking, what matters more? Is it the immediate measurable results, stopping a conflict now, getting a ceasefire?
Or is it the longer game, building those foundational diplomatic frameworks, fostering cooperation, making those symbolic shifts? My position is, well, I lean towards the latter. I think the critical importance lies in those foundational efforts, the institutional changes, which really reflects the spirit of Obama's original award criteria.
Yeah, I see it rather differently. I think we need to be, quite honest about what success looks like on the ground. Intentions, frameworks, yes, they have value, conceptually. But genuine effectiveness, I believe, has to be tied to concrete, verifiable outcomes. Conflict resolution you can point to, rapid de-escalation that demonstrably saves lives. These are the metrics President Trump is using, and frankly, they resonate because they represent tangible results. Ultimately, isn't the goal of peace to stop immediate suffering? So I argue we reserve the highest praise for leaders who deliver that right now, not just those with good intentions or a shift in diplomatic language. This whole comparison really throws into sharp relief a deep disagreement. Are we prioritizing prevention, which is hard to measure, or cure, which is often immediate?
Okay, let's anchor this in the specifics of 2009 then. It's crucial to remember when President Obama was honored, it was only 8 months into his presidency. Sworn in January 20th, award announced October 9th. That timing, I think, speaks volumes. It suggests the criteria were more structural, perhaps, not purely transactional. And the committee was explicit. Their citation was for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples. That wasn't about a specific ceasefire he just brokered. It was a nod, a significant one, towards a necessary pivot back to multilateralism. Think about the early pushes, nuclear disarmament talks, serious engagement on climate action, the hard work of mending alliances after, well, let's face it, years of a more unilateral approach. These were commitments to changing the system. Symbolic of a shift, I believe, holds much greater long-term value than any single temporary conflict halt. Lasting peace surely needs that kind of global architecture.
See, I'm sorry, but I just struggle with the idea that the Nobel Prize, arguably the world's highest honor for peace, should be awarded based on essentially symbolic potential, rather than actual, tested success. If the standard is just intention, doesn't the standard risk becoming, irrelevant? We need to focus on impact, on metrics we can actually assess. President Trump's repeated claim, may be harsh, that Obama got it for doing nothing. It forces this contrast between potential and realized outcomes. His latest boast, maybe rhetorically inflated, is having stopped 8 wars. But let's put the exact number aside for a second and look at something very concrete. Just yesterday, October 9th, 2025, Israel's cabinet approved a U.S.-brokered 20-point blueprint for a Gaza ceasefire. That plan is paving the way for hostage releases. That is immediate impact, life-saving impact, potentially. It's the cessation of hostilities right now. It's measurable, it's verifiable. Now, is the political process behind that blueprint fragile? Yes. Highly contingent? Absolutely. Temporary? Maybe. But stopping the violence, even for a limited time, surely outweighs the conceptual value of simply saying alliances are mended. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
And this brings us right to the heart of it, doesn't it? Defining what kind of act of peace merits the highest recognition. Is the slow, painstaking work building frameworks for nuclear disarmament, climate cooperation, is that truly comparable in terms of immediate human impact to these decisive, swift interventions aimed at stopping conflicts now?
the kind that Trump claims save a lot of lives? We need clarity here. Should the prize reward the long game, the institutional durability that might take decades to prove itself? Or should it reward the rapid, life-saving achievement of stopping the fighting?
That's an interesting framing, though I might put it slightly differently. Look, the visceral appeal, the humanitarian urgency of a rapid conflict halt, it's undeniable, of course, and we absolutely acknowledge the need for immediate relief. But focusing only on those specific interventions, it often feels like treating the symptoms, not the root cause, doesn't it? We risk celebrating a temporary pause while the underlying global structures, the things that allowed the conflict in the first place, remain fundamentally broken. It's like, fixing a faulty electrical grid. You can put out 8 specific fires, sure, but if you don't address the bad wiring that's causing them, the next fire, maybe a much bigger one, is inevitable. Obama's efforts in 2009, bolstering multilateral systems, trying to restore cooperative norms, those were the structural repairs. That's the necessary, though maybe less dramatic work.
So I'd argue that lasting peace requires that robust architecture, the kind that actually prevents conflicts from igniting. And maybe success should also be measured by the wars that didn't happen because that framework was strengthened.
But how do you measure that? This idea of prevention as success, it's inherently abstract, isn't it? You can't really verify a non-event. And focusing on the architecture, well, it leads straight back to President Trump's critique about the timing, which I have to say is rhetorically powerful and I think intellectually challenging. He keeps pointing out how fast Obama got the award, barely 8 months into his term, for actions just underway. Can we really justify giving the world's highest peace honor mostly on symbolic potential, a change in tone, rather than proven success that's been tested by time and events? It seems the burden of proof was extraordinarily low if simply announcing a new direction gets you the prize. I mean, many leaders announce admirable goals that unfortunately collapse pretty quickly under real-world pressure.
Yeah, I'm just not convinced by that line of argument because I think it misses the specific geopolitical moment of 2009, and because of that, it kind of misinterprets what the committee was likely trying to achieve. The timing, I actually think, highlights the committee's desire to validate a crucial new direction, to encourage that change at a really pivotal moment for global relations. It felt like a strategic validation. Remember the stated criteria, recognizing efforts to strengthen diplomacy. The value wasn't just in the potential, but in the demonstrated commitment to reversing global tensions, to re-engaging with the world. That commitment, arguably, provided the political capital needed for Obama to then pursue those harder, long-term structural repairs, negotiating New START, forging climate agreements, things like that. If they'd waited, say, 5 years, for definitive proof, that crucial political window might have closed. Sometimes, maybe the most important act is establishing that commitment to peace itself, which then opens the door for tangible results later. I mean, can any major peace effort truly be fully tested and proven successful in just a few months or years anyway? Aren't all big structural changes subject to constant revision and challenge?
Okay, I can see that commitment is necessary, yes, but commitment without fairly immediate, measurable impact, it feels like it only offers a very fragile kind of hope. And speaking of tested success, or maybe the claims of success, that brings up the whole question of motivation, which you touched on earlier regarding intent. We have to address this dynamic. President Trump says, I didn't do it for that, the Nobel, right? Yet we know he sought nomination before. He's publicly complained about being snubbed, even called it an insult to our country. Does the effectiveness of peace efforts, even ones resulting in highly publicized agreements like the Abraham Accords or this new Gaza blueprint, does that effectiveness get undermined when the motivation appears to be significantly tied to personal recognition, to ego, to political validation? I mean, does it matter why they do it if it works?
But I would argue that motivation is actually intrinsically linked to the durability of the outcome. A peace process that seems driven mainly by short-term transactional wins, perhaps designed to boost a leader's personal standing, well, it inherently lacks the deep, shared diplomatic foundation needed for lasting security, doesn't it? When success is measured primarily by the leader's own scorecard, does that build trust in the long run? Does the global community really invest its faith, its resources, its political capital in a framework if they suspect the broker might just walk away once the spotlight moves on? It absolutely raises questions about the long-term viability of agreements like the Abraham Accords or even this Gaza ceasefire blueprint. Is it just a handshake for the cameras, or is it meant to be a lasting treaty, a real change? For sustained peace, I think you need genuine diplomatic integrity, not just a deal.
That's a compelling point about integrity, I grant you. But let me push back a bit with the practical reality. Don't we ultimately have to judge the results, the outcomes, rather than trying to psychoanalyze the broker's internal drivers? We're seeking stability, measured stability. And sometimes, maybe often, that stability is achieved by a strong hand, regardless of the ego attached to that hand. The political theater, the self-promotion, maybe that's just noise, secondary to the fact that lives are potentially saved or hostile relationships are normalized. Does the motive really change the concrete reality for a family reunited in a hostage exchange, for instance? The results, like the Abraham Accords in 2020, which undeniably shifted regional dynamics by normalizing ties between Israel and several Arab states, or this Gaza ceasefire plan greenlit yesterday, those results are geopolitical facts. They have immediate impact.
Ego that might have helped broker them. Shouldn't we prioritize execution and impact, especially when lives are on the line, over worrying too much about the perceived altruism or lack thereof of the negotiator? The world desperately needs peace, maybe not necessarily moral purity in every step of the process.
And I think that's exactly where our core disagreement crystallizes. For me, the enduring legacy of peace, the kind that lasts, is ultimately built on those shared goals, those mended alliances, those established diplomatic frameworks, that institutional resilience. Even accepting, absolutely, that tangible results from that approach can take years, sometimes decades, to fully materialize. Obama's focus, as I see it, was about ensuring that when the next crisis inevitably arises, the global community actually has the cooperative mechanisms, the structure in place to try and resolve it fundamentally, not just put a temporary patch on it.
And I still maintain that while intentions and architecture definitely matter, the true undeniable value in global peacemaking resides in those verifiable actions that immediately halt conflict and save lives now. President Trump's focus, whether you agree with his rhetoric or not, on the 8 wars stopped and the immediate potential impact of the Gaza blueprint announced just yesterday, well, it demonstrates a commitment to rapid, decisive execution that aims to provide stability in the present moment. A cessation of hostilities, a newly formalized diplomatic relationship. These aren't just theories or aspirations. They are measurable steps towards actual human security, right here, right now.
So this comparison of approaches, it really does lay bare that fundamental tension, doesn't it? The long-game structural repair, maybe symbolized by 2009, versus the focus on immediate conflict cessation, highlighted by the claims and actions of 2025. Are we rewarding the symbolic intention, the commitment to building lasting institutions, or are we rewarding concrete, measurable execution that stops the bleeding today?
Exactly. And, as the world holds its breath waiting for that announcement from the Norwegian Nobel Institute in just a few hours, that tension is incredibly palpable. Today's decision, whoever the laureate is, will undoubtedly force everyone, policymakers, academics, the public, to weigh this very specific evidence of rapid action against the perhaps less glamorous but potentially more enduring necessity of building a truly peaceful global framework. Clearly, there's a lot more to unpack here about what really defines effective peacemaking in our complex world.